Egypt arrests doctors and silences critics over virus outbreak. A doctor arrested after writing an article about Egypt's fragile health system. A pharmacist picked up from work after posting online about a shortage of protective gear. An editor taken from his home after questioning official coronavirus figures. A pregnant doctor arrested after a colleague used her phone to report a suspected coronavirus case. As Egyptian authorities fight the swelling coronavirus outbreak, security agencies have tried to stifle criticism about the handling of the health crisis by the government of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. I don't know if I pronounced that right. At least 10 doctors and 6 journalists have been arrested since the virus first hit Egypt in February, according to rights groups. And we are complaining about our rights in America. Well, at least you're not coming up missing, okay, for voicing your opinion. In some other place you would. It's good to be reminded of that we take our freedoms for granted. Other health workers say they have been warned by administrators to keep quiet or face punishment. One foreign correspondent fled the country fearing arrest, and another 2 have been summoned for reprimand over professional violations. Infections over there are surging in the country of 100 million, threatening to overwhelm hospitals. As of Monday, the health ministry recorded 76,000 plus infections, including 3,300 deaths, the highest death toll in the Arab world. So they don't want anyone to know that. Every day I go to work, I sacrifice myself and my whole family, said a frontline doctor in Greater Cairo who spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of reprisals, like all doctors interviewed for this story. Then they arrest my colleagues to send us a message. I see no light on the horizon. In 2013, el-Sisi, a defense minister at the time, led the military's removal of Egypt's first democratically elected president. Was a freaking coup. Mohamed Morsi, after his brief rule, sparked nationwide protests. In years since, el-Sisi has stamped out dissent, jailing Islamicist political opponents, secular activists, journalists, and even belly dancers. Dude ain't putting up with nothing, y'all. Now the clampdown is extended to doctors who speak publicly about missing protective gear or question the official infection count. A government press officer did not respond to requests for comment on the arrests of doctors and journalists, but did send the Associated Press a document entitled Realities Defeating Evil Falsehoods, which details what it says are el-Sisi's successes in improving the economy and fighting terrorism. El-Sisi has said the virus's trajectory was reassuring and described critics as enemies of the state. In recent weeks, authorities have marshaled medical supplies to prepare for more patients. The military has set up field hospitals and isolation centers with 4,000 beds and delivered masks to citizens free of charge at metro stop squares and other public places. The government has scaled up testing within all general hospitals and ordered private companies to churn out face masks and gear for frontline workers. But health personnel are sounding the alarm on social media. Doctors say shortages have forced them to purchase surgical masks with their meager salaries. Families plead for intensive care beds. Dentists and pharmacies complained of being forced to handle suspected virus patients with little training. The pandemic has pushed the Egyptian Medical Syndicate, a non-political group of professionals, into a striking new role as the country's sole advocate for doctors' rights. That's worth fighting for, dude. That's worth fighting for. Last month, the union released a letter to the public prosecutor demanding the release of 5 doctors detained for expressing their views about the government's virus response. Last month, the union released a letter to the public prosecutor demanding the release of 5 doctors detained for expressing their views about the government virus response. Dude, what's up? Like, those dudes are just tied up, man. More syndicate members have been arrested than reported, said one board member, but families have kept quiet. Doctors' low morale sank further last week following the arrest of board member and treasurer Mohammed Al Fawal, who demanded on Facebook that the Prime Minister apologize for comments that appeared to blame health workers for a spike in the virus deaths. In a televised briefing, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouly criticized doctors' negligence and mismanagement for endangering citizens' health. So now it's the doctors versus the government. You already know what's going on here. I don't need to tell you what's up. After Madbouly's comments, the union scheduled a press conference in late June to raise awareness about doctors' sacrifices and discuss staff and supply shortages. But before anyone could speak out, security forces surrounded the syndicate and sent members home, according to former leader Mona Mina. A communications officer who promoted the event was detained and interrogated by security agents for hours, said a board member. You do realize when they say interrogated, they mean like torture? Let's just call it what it is. They don't fuck around. It's not like being interrogated by someone in the United States, while you're here. I know what we do when we're outside of here. These doctors have no history of activism. They were arrested because they offered criticism of their very specific professional circumstances, said Human Rights Watch, which has confirmed the arrest of 8 doctors and 2 pharmacists. 2 have been released, he said, while the rest remain in pretrial detention. Human Rights Watch. So maybe someone should call them and ask them if we have human rights issues in the United States. I can tell you a couple of human rights issues that we have in the United States. One being pedophilia. It's a travesty. It's fucking everywhere. Everywhere. That's a human rights violation. Maybe that should be looked into. I'm hoping that Giselle, or whatever the fuck her name is, she spills some names, dude. In another case, security agents burst into the home of Hani Bakar, an ophthalmologist in North Cairo, according to his lawyer and Amnesty International, over his fake Facebook post that criticized the government for sending coronavirus aid to Italy and China while its own doctors were desperately short of protective equipment. He remains in detention on terrorism charges. And we think we have it so terrible here. They would have their hands full if they tried some shit like that here. That's all I gotta say. Shit. Might as well come pick me up. Try it. In March, public prosecutors accused 26-year-old Allah Shaban of joining a terrorist group and misusing social media after she allowed a colleague to call the health ministry's coronavirus hotline from her phone instead of first reporting the case to her managers. It's out of control, dude. It's out of control. There's so much more on this story. I'm just like, what the fuck? Is it ever going to end? In another message sent to staff, a hospital director in the same province describes those who fail to show up to work as traitors. This will be treated as a national security matter, and you know how that goes in Egypt. Even dudes saying. A doctor in Cairo shared WhatsApp messages with the AP from his manager, alerting staff that their attendance sheets were monitored by state security. Oh, and America has it so bad. So bad. Although Al-Sisi resisted a total lockdown because of economic impact, schools, mosques, restaurants, malls, and clubs were closed early in the outbreak, and a nightly curfew imposed. With borders shut and cruise ships docked, Egypt's critical tourism revenues disappeared, among other sources of income. The country secured a badly needed $5.2 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund in June, on top of a previous $2.8 billion arrangement. Last week, fearing further economic fallout, the government reopened much of society and welcomed hundreds of international tourists back to resorts, even as daily reported deaths exceeded 80. Restaurants and cafes are opening with some continued restrictions, and masks have been mandated in public. So if you want to go to Egypt and die or get arrested for voicing your opinion, just go ahead and try that. You ain't coming home anytime soon, I'll tell you that. Those who spread false news online about the virus could face up to 5 years imprisonment and steep fines, says Egypt's top prosecutor, warning people this spring. There's more to this, believe it or not, but I'm going to link it at bizarrebus.com.